Well, today was the first day we crossed into 100 degrees, and my wife left my favorite pair of sandals outside. And wouldn't you know it, rubber sandals, they melt and they bend in the heat. And I'm looking for a new pair of sandals. All right, welcome to episode 17 of Valley of the Sun Sunday Scaries. I am your host, as always, Sean Nickel, coming to you live from the Valley of the Sun, Phoenix, Arizona. And like I said in the intro there, we officially hit the triple-digit mark for today. It is like the end of April, and we're already in the triple digits, so it's going to be a nice hot summer, but I can't really complain. I love the sun. I love being here. And I love doing these podcasts. So episode 17 is going to be around an emotion that I feel like a lot of people right now are feeling very heavily. And that emotion is nostalgia. And it's something that I had been feeling for a very long time, way before COVID-19. And something I used to consider one of my bigger weaknesses that I had was that I was too nostalgic. And I think that a lot of us right now are feeling this more in the terms of, I miss the days of being able to go golf when I wanted to. I miss being able to just go to the bar. I miss being able to just go hang out with friends. I think that's the nostalgia a lot of people are feeling right now. My nostalgia was a little bit deeper to how things used to be, but nostalgia nonetheless is something a lot of people are feeling. So I want to dive into that because if used correctly, it's an amazing emotion. It's very powerful, and if used the wrong way, it can literally cripple you. So we'll do a ton of research on this together. So first off, I think it's important to define nostalgia. So nostalgia is defined as a sentimental longing or wistful affection for the past, typically for a period or place with happy personal association. So nostalgia is typically a happy feeling. It is a good feeling, sort of, and we'll talk about that in a second. But for the most part, you relate nostalgia with good feelings and good times and good places in your life. So nostalgia as a whole was actually coined in 1688 by Johannes Hofer. He's a Swiss doctor. He coined the term from a little bit of Greek in here. Nostos, which is like homecoming, and there's algos, which is pain. And so we put those together, you got nostalgia. And what's crazy is that it was mainly for people that would be going off to war, and they'd be thinking about their life at home and wanting to be home. And originally, doctors felt like nostalgia was a disease that could literally kill you because they were using all these weird terms like it's demons and all this crazy stuff. But really, it was just a longing of a simpler life and of a time way back when you felt like life was a little bit better. And of course, if you're off to war in the 1600s and the 1700s, I can't think of or worse places that you could be than that. That's for sure. So before COVID-19, I felt a lot of nostalgia, and I really considered it one of my bigger weaknesses. Nostalgia for me, if you ask my wife, I'm all about traditions and keeping things the way that they've been for years and things like that with my friends and family. And so I would often look at times in my life that, 5-10 years ago that I would hold a higher prestige than my current situation. And I think it's funny when you think of how cool college was when in reality you had like $75 in your bank account, you couldn't afford to do anything, and you compare that to a time now where you have like a savings account and a 401k, and I think we all can agree that it really isn't what we keep building up in our heads to be, whether you loved high school or college or whatever it might be. I think more of like, in my career, there were points in my career where I felt like I was doing a lot better than I am currently or I had in the past. So you think about how times used to be in your career. And I feel like for someone who's like 29 years old to be feeling nostalgia is perfectly normal, but I'm really not relying on a whole lot of life experience like someone who's maybe in their 50s or 60s or 70s when they're nostalgic looking back. So I definitely take all of that with a grain of salt, but nostalgia still was a emotion that I quite often felt. Now, there are pros and cons to nostalgia. I used to think it was just all bad. I thought that if you just dwelled on the past and thought about how times used to be, it was a bad thing. Now, too much of it is definitely a bad thing. If you get sucked into the past, you're really going to affect the present, and more importantly, you're going to affect the future. And what's crazy about nostalgia is if done the right way, people that often reflect on their past, it actually enhances their present and gets them looking towards the future if you do it the right way. So if you think about how your life used to be at a certain moment in your life, that's like an instant jolt of emotion that will help you level set where you're at, and then also paint some vision for where you're going, which is kind of crazy. So if you are feeling nostalgic, use that power for good. Don't keep dwelling on it, and use the power to look at where you want to go and then reset and go after it. If you are someone like me who is now across the country from the rest of their friends and family, nostalgia is a way that helps you combat loneliness. It helps you connect with people that aren't even there, like with your social environment that you might have used to have. It's a human condition that allows you to combat loneliness. It's designed scientifically for that reason. And it also boosts your resilience and your perseverance. So if you are finding yourself going through times of turmoil, times of adversity, if you start looking back to some of the finer moments in your life, it actually helps you combat what you're feeling. It helps you persevere, and it helps you just push through. Don't shortchange the fact that thinking about how your life used to be can't help you moving forward if you're in a tough time. Listen to an old song that brings back good memories. For me, there's certain smells of like grass and football and things like that. So if you know that there's certain things that jolt you and give you a nice little hit there of emotion, use those to help you push forward. So as you saw in the beginning of this whole video, nostalgia also makes you do some pretty weird things. So this weekend was supposed to be an anniversary trip for my wife and I, and we were supposed to be in New York City, and I've talked about that on a couple of the podcasts now. And so we thought it'd be cool to get some nostalgia going. So what we did was Christine, for the first time in 4 years, put on her wedding dress. I put on a gray suit, as close as I could get to the suit that I wore at our wedding. And we just came out here and we took photos outside with our dog, and we pretended like we were having a wedding again. And so Christine had another great idea where we were just going to surprise all of our friends and have them join a Zoom conference call. And we brought our family in and our friends in, and I DJ'd it, and we had another wedding reception. And so it was cool to get everybody together and surprise them. Christine still looks absolutely amazing in her wedding dress 4 years later. No surprise there. But again, nostalgia makes you do some weird shit. And in the moment, it was a lot of fun. And looking back at some of the videos, and maybe me and Christine had a couple too many adult beverages. But I wouldn't trade this anniversary for the world. And so it was a very unique experience, and it's one that I'm glad I got to have. So to wrap this all up, nostalgia is a very common emotion, especially for people that are in quarantine right now who are just dreaming of what it used to be like. And so if you're in that category, the good news is that you're most likely going to start seeing some of these quarantines lifted. But if you're like me and you consistently look back at the past of how life used to be, or how you used to be in certain parts of your life, you got to use it as a power of good. If you ever find yourself in those moments, take that time to then surge forward in your current endeavors and use it as, why can't my life be just as good now as it was perceptionally back then? So that's what I wanted to leave you with. Nostalgia comes in a lot of different forms, and for me, I was looking through some of my older podcasts even, and it's funny when you hear myself talking about things around Twitter when life was a little bit simpler than full-on quarantine. So nostalgia comes and goes, but you just got to use it for the power of good. Don't use it for evil. Don't dwell on the past. Don't let it hurt your present. Let it enhance your present. My nostalgia is I'm nostalgic for my old sandals. I mean, what used to be. I'll get new sandals, and I'll get a new chapters in my life, and the nostalgia will wear off, and we'll just keep on rolling through. So again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Next week, I believe we'll be back to having some guests on the show, which is always fun. But as always, stay healthy, stay distanced, and welcome to the Valley of the Sun.